Hey everybody, welcome in. Much love to all the people. And today we are talking about SkyTear. It is a game that we've had in the shop for a little bit, but we want to introduce it to you, show you how to play it, and give you an idea of some of the concepts so that way you can come in and hopefully, play a game with us. That'd be kind of nice. All right, so if you've ever played a MOBA, SkyTear is definitively the game for you. It even has organized play, which we'll do in another video. And right now we're going to talk about how to play the game, how to set up, what exactly it is. So Kyle, give us a rundown of what the game is overall in relation to MOBA and explain that a little bit.
So if you're used to playing a MOBA, you're used to the whole like 3-lane thing. You kind of have these 3 different lanes that go down. The minions go down on the left and right lanes, and they are basically controlling the area for you. You'll send your characters in, and your characters will help either kill the enemy minions or just help contest the area, which will help you essentially win the lane. And as you win the lane, you're going to push these little control points in the middle towards the enemy towers, and in turn you will eventually work your way down the lane, hopefully to get to their nexus to win the game.
Now, the nexus is the overarching win condition. If you destroy the enemy's nexus, doesn't matter what random win conditions are up, if you destroy the enemy nexus, you win the game. Now, how else can you win the game? Well, there are different win conditions. And those win conditions are going to be established at the very beginning of the game before you even set your characters on the board. And the win conditions could be, for example, this is invasion. And invasion says starting from the second turn, so you got to get to the second turn, you can have, if you have 2 control tokens that are adjacent to the enemy towers, so if you can move this control piece all the way adjacent to the enemy tower, or to the nexus at the end of the turn, you win. You just win. You don't even have to destroy it. You just have this one here and push this one all the way over here, and we'll get to the point where we tell you how to do that, and that all happens during the minion phase. But if you can do that, then you succeed on this win condition, and now you don't even have to destroy the towers or the nexus. You're just pushing the pace, and if you can get this one here and this one here, you satisfy this win condition. It was randomly given to you, and you just win the game. So there's a lot of really cool stuff, and as you can see, 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10 in the base game, 10 different random win conditions in the base game. And then, of course, as you look at the expansions, there are even more win conditions. So would you say that there's a lot of variety in this game, Kyle?
Oh yeah, I think the win conditions change it up so that certain characters will shine in different moments.
Now, what we're going to do now is we're just going to kind of give you an idea of how the game works. So, startup of the game. The first thing you're going to need to do is you're going to need to get 4 heroes that you want to play. That's right off the bat. Now, in the base game, there's only 8 heroes. So, you're going to get 4, your opponent's going to get 4, and you're going to play within your faction. Now, after you've got your 4, you need to put your deck together. How do you put your deck together? Well, you're going to need 8 cards per hero, and one of the 8 cards, and again, this is all the base game, one of the 8 cards will be an ultimate. And these cards are going to look like this. They're going to look pretty cool. They're going to have little mana symbols on them, and they're going to do different things. And you'll know a card is an ultimate because it will have the picture of whatever hero you wanted to play. It'll have it on the card. So 1 ultimate card, and then 7 of these regular kind of what they call power cards. And that makes 8 per, so we're talking 32 cards. Now you've got your deck. So once you have your deck and you've got your 4 characters, you're going to take your 4 characters and they're going to go into your nexus. And after you've gotten all your characters into the nexus, you're going to draw cards. All that's in the instruction book, so you'll draw your cards. And then once you've drawn your cards and you've set up everything else on the board, your outsider won't be on the board at the beginning, so we'll go ahead and move it to the side. And you're going to set out your win conditions. Now, you don't know what the win conditions are. Your opponent doesn't know what the win conditions are, but you get 3. So we just set up some random win conditions. And then once we've set up our random win conditions, we're going to take the picture of our person and we're going to place it on the health track based on what's on their card. So, for example, if that's a 16, they go to a 16. This one's a 16 as well, so that person would be on a 16. You've got your opponent's track, so maybe they're here, 14, whatever. You've got your track, and you'll just put your guys where they need to go on the health track. And as they lose health, you'll move those tokens down. Now, after we've set up our team and we've set up our minions and we have our little control points and everything's good to go, we're going to begin the game and we're going to start in what's called the hero phase. Now, what I love most about this game is there's only two phases. There's the hero phase and there's the minion phase. And after the minion phase, we're going to move the marker. So you've got effectively 5 turns, and the turn tells you how much mana that you have. So earlier when I showed you a card, and for example, this one has 3 mana on it. So if I want to play this card, I'd have to be at turn 3, or I'd have to have a way to make that mana. Now, there will be some cards that make mana for you, and you can include those in your deck, which is why I highly recommend buying the expansions. But again, you have to have the mana to play the card, and the mana is usually tied to the turn. So by the time I'm in 5, right near the end of the game, I could play a card like this, and then I could also play a card like this, and then still have enough to play another 1-pointer if I wanted to. And I would basically assign these cards to each individual hero. Now, the neat thing about the game is this isn't the total amount of mana that you have for the turn. This is the total amount of mana that you have per character. So if you put 5 mana worth of things on this guy, then he can't cast any more power cards, and now you can use it on her, or you could use it on him, or you could use it on her. And you would just kind of move around and you would do it. And obviously, those cards could have restrictions. For example, they could say everything within 3 hexes. So obviously, if your guy's over here, you can't play the power card over there. And then on top of everything that I just said, at the minion phase, you're only going to draw 2 power cards. So it's not like you're going to have a ton of power cards anyways. So let's start with the hero phase. What are we doing in the hero phase? Well, every hero is going to get 3 actions. So talk a little bit about the actions, Kyle.
So our first action's definitely just going to be move. So our character can move up to 3 hexes, and that is just going to take up one of our first actions. Next, we can attack. You'll notice some characters will have a little bow to indicate that it's a ranged character, and some of them will have a sword to indicate that it's melee. If you're a ranged character, you follow the same rule where you can only attack within 3 hexes. So this guy could attack right here. But if you're melee, you only are going to be able to attack from around you. The other thing you can do is an action called lead, where you're going to take the top card of your deck face down and put it underneath your character.
And is this a blind draw?
It's completely blind. But you can also opt to do it from your hand, and then it wouldn't be blind.
But that would give you 1 less card for the game, right?
Yes, so you'd lose a card from your hand.
And the strategy on that is that when we get to the minion phase, lead will help us to push the control points. Is that correct?
Yes.
Awesome.
Outside of that, we also have a action called skirmish. Skirmish basically allows us to, in a combination of any order we want, you can move 1, you can attack, and you can move 1. So it's kind of like, it's a different type of attack, because instead of using the value on the card, you're actually going to attack for 0 plus a card off the top of the deck. Which, whenever you attack, you're always going to flip a card based on how many cards are on the card. So like these guys all have 1s, but some characters will draw 2 cards. And you'll always pick one of the 2. You don't get both cards. You only get 1. So even if you're flipping 2, you're just making it more consistent on what you get, not necessarily adding more power. The last of the 5 actions is going to be worship. And that's going to be different for every character that we have. For example, the blue characters are all able to shapeshift. And when you shapeshift, you activate the second ability on the card, or it becomes active for you. An interesting thing about shapeshift is it's the only ability you can use as your last action to make it so that you're shapeshifted for the next turn. You can also shapeshift other characters for them as long as you're in range of them. The red characters are able to mark, and then they have effects based on when a target is marked. The green characters can make pillars, and they'll usually have an effect on being within range of the pillar. And then the white characters can all make a like ghost version of themselves, and then they can interact with that in their own special way.
So we're going to quickly just kind of run through what a hero would do on their 3 actions, and we're going to use this hero right here. So for example, the first thing this hero wants to do, and they have range, so they can actually shoot these minions. They're going to try to skirmish, right? So what can I do with skirmish? How many spaces can I move?
You can move 1 hex 2 times. So
all right, so 1, 1. Now, range is 3. You're going to notice that the rule of 3 is in effect for a lot of different things. Am I 3 hexes away from a minion? 1, 2, 3. I am. All right. So now, in order to deal damage with the skirmish, what do I do?
You actually can't skirmish a minion.
Oh, illegal play. So let's just say I moved. Now, the rule for movement is I can move 3. So first action, I'm going to move 3. 1, 2, 3. So I'm going to move 3.
Yep, that's your
now,
first of
that's
3.
my first action. Second action, can I move again?
You cannot move again.
So you can only use each of these actions one time, correct?
Yes.
All right, now I'm going to, for my second action, I'm just going to lead. So I would take a blind card and I would put it underneath my guy. And then for my third action, I would do a normal attack, and I can normal attack minions.
Yep.
And so basically the way this works is I'm going to flip a card, and then it's going to be 3 plus whatever the card is. So if I flip this card and there's a 1, 3 plus 1, not the mana symbol, but the actual plus, is what I'm going to have. So if you see a plus here, there must be cards with negatives as well.
There are.
That's correct. And so you have to deal 1 damage to your minion in order to kill it. So if, for example, I flip a card that gives me a -3 because it's so powerful, then I would deal 0 damage and I would not kill that card. And sometimes you're dealing 0 damage, like for example with skirmish. If you're skirmishing another hero, your base damage is 0, and then when I flip this over, it's only 1 because that's what I flipped over. So cards or heroes that can actually flip over 2 cards could be a little more consistent because they would flip over 2 and they would get to choose between. That could be a +1, that could be a +3. They would choose the +3. And then, again, they're going through their deck and they're cycling these cards out. So the advantage of having 1 card as your flip is that you're not cycling through your deck as fast and potentially not pushing past cards that you may actually want to draw and play. So guys like this Akimbo guy, he is going to cycle through the deck much faster. When the deck cycles through, obviously, you'll shuffle it, make a new deck. But that's the hero phase in a nutshell. We obviously killed that minion, and that's going to help us to push the nexus point, and we'll talk about the minion phase now. So when we get to the minion phase, let's say everyone's moved and they're done their things and we're all over the board and everyone's everywhere they want to be, and we're kind of like focusing on these nexus points. When we get to the minion phase, what exactly are we doing here in order to push these control points?
So we're always going to take the characters that are within line of sight of the tower. So are the control point. So at the control point, everybody within 3 spaces that can see it, that isn't blocked by like these white lines like over here or another character, they're going to be able to see the control point, and then we're going to compare the numbers. So the first...
And another thing before we get to that point, line of fire is just counting empty hexes to the point. It doesn't have to be a straight line. It doesn't look at touching corners. It's just if I'm here, I can go 1 empty hex, 2 empty hex, boom, 3. I can see it. That's all it is. If, for example, a character was here, obviously I can't go this way, but I could go empty, empty. Hey, look, I can see it. So effectively, you just want empty hexes. It doesn't have to be an exact straight line.
And then minions don't block sight either.
Yeah, minions don't block sight.
So when you'd get to this point, you would count heroes to heroes, so in this case 2 to 2, minions to minions, in this case it's 2 to 2.
Well, let's say this is our character that did the lead.
Yes.
So now we would reveal that lead card if it was blind or if it was from hand.
Yep.
And what would we be adding?
We'd be adding these symbols. So this one would actually add 3 extra to the amount.
A pretty lucky blind draw.
Pretty good.
So now their side is dealing 3. So
because it's
walk
seven.
us.
Because it's 7-4. They're
Yep.
now winning by 3.
Yeah.
So the step one is you immediately would kill the minions. So there are 2 minions on this side, so we take them off the board.
Yep.
And then there's 1 left. And with the 1 left, you'll always move the control point towards the enemy tower. So our tower's here, so this is it has to move 1 space closer to it.
Now, anytime anything resolves on the board, you always want to check your victory conditions. So, for example, if this says reduce enemy towers down to a total of 4 HP or less, every tower has 5 health at the beginning of the game. This one says defeat 2 enemy heroes using an outsider. Anytime you resolve anything on the board, you always want to check your conditions because, for example, this might say defeat 3 minions. Well, if we defeated 2 minions, we're almost there. So we would put a marker on there with the number 2, and you're going to have those. And effectively, one side would be the white and one side would be the black, and that would show you or your opponent. And so let's say I killed 2 of the minions out of the 3, so I've got 2 on there. So now we know that I've killed 2. If I kill 1 more minion, I win the game.
Yep.
That's how it works. So every time you resolve anything on the board, always check your victory conditions. So we did an excess of 1 damage, and we moved the hex 1 space. Now, if you did so much damage that you moved adjacent to the tower, then any further movement would be damage to the tower. And then now, from now on, as long as you're adjacent to that tower, any excess damage you deal is going to keep dealing damage to that tower until it's destroyed. Then you can move your control point to the nexus and do the same thing. And remember, if you destroy your enemy's nexus, you win the game. That's always a win condition that's on the board. And then, of course, you have these 3 victory conditions as well, and those will be random. So once we're done with the minion phase, we draw 2 cards. And once we've drawn our 2 cards, that is it. We go from 1 to 2, and then we wash, rinse, and repeat. So there's a simplicity to the game, but there's also all of these layers because as you add the expansions, you get more heroes, you get more power cards, you have different deck makeups, you have different win conditions, you have 100 different things that you can add. So the play style is very asymmetric. What do you like about the game, and why do you think people should be playing this game?
I really like the hero diversity. Once you get the expansions in, I mean, even just like the base game expansions, like every one of the colors has like 6 main units. So there's so many different ways you can like build and craft a team. And when you get into like the more competitive side of things, there's actually like a pick and ban step, like in most MOBAs. So there's that extra level of strategy where even if you think you have the most optimal play, your opponent can always disrupt what you're doing. And with the different win conditions, like everything is just, every game should be a new game. It should never feel like you're playing the same thing over and over again. And that's the most fun thing about MOBAs.
Now, another great thing about this game is, and we're going to show you now, is the center control point. So every game you're going to have an outsider, and as you get expansions, you'll be able to take control of the outsider. And this outsider is just absolutely insane. Very simple rule with a big outsider like this. 1 inside, 1 outside. So you could set it up any way you want as long as one part's touching in and one part is touching out. And taking control of this outsider is very strong. It allows you to kill. So, for example, this random win condition says defeat 2 enemy heroes with the outsider. So if someone's trying to contest your control in the center here, you'll be able to kill. And then, of course, you can see that this outsider can face on the outside and draw lines of fire to enemy heroes over here. So if your opponent doesn't want to contest you and you're controlling the inside, then you'll be able to use this big old thing to just start destroying your opponent's heroes, which is going to slow them down, because if your hero dies, you leave the game for a turn, and then after a turn goes by, you come in. So you got to be real careful about dying in this game, because you can lose a little bit of momentum, but at the same time, it's very fair and it runs very smoothly. Also about the different victory conditions and the different expansions and everything else is that none of these guys play the same. They all play very differently. They all have different abilities. For example, Akimbo, he's all about marking targets and doing extra damage. And then you got this guy right here, Hokusai, and Hokusai is just a super tank, and he can reveal cards to damage himself to draw aggro, and he also has cards that are affiliated with him, power cards that are affiliated with him that allow him to heal. And he's got a lot of defense. He has a 2 defense, whereas if you look at Akimbo, he's completely DPS, no defense whatsoever, just a 0 defense. Because he's just trying to get in there and basically one-shot heroes if he can. Because of the fact that he gets to reveal 2 and then just hopefully deal a lot of damage. So they all play very differently. There's dual faction guys that are both green and red. You can tell because their border is red and green, whereas while this guy can use green and red power cards, he's only red faction. So it's like there's just so much variety in the game, and they're putting out new stuff all the time. If you are interested in the game, if you're interested in MOBAs, if you're looking for something fun to play, and our next video is going to be all about organized play. So if you're looking for something really cool and competitive play, this is the game for you. Any parting words, Kyle, before we let them go?
I hope to see everyone come out and play some SkyTear.
Absolutely. SkyTear. If you're not playing it, get out here and let's play a game.